All right, guys, we are live. Um, Everybody that follows this show know that I go by Rover Sports, Spencer from Rover Sports, and have been and continue to call me that. I just believe, with this channel name being Pigskin Pennies, it will allow me to focus in on everything football, meaning college, the National Football League, any kind of staff changes. I want to be able to discuss on my show. And I think that pigskin pennies, because pennies kind of pennies for your thoughts, and pigskin meaning football, this is going to be all football related show. A lot of times I might talk basketball, but I'm not going to do that here. I'll probably do that on another avenue. This is going to be a football channel. We'll even get into college and NFL things on this show, continue to do that. Lincoln Riley goes to USC yesterday. And this was the biggest move, coaching move, that I can remember in college football since Jim Harbaugh went to the University of Michigan. That I would say that this move is the biggest move since Jim Harbaugh went to Michigan. And I'm going to tell you why. One, you can also say Urban Meyer retiring from the sport. Lincoln Riley, if we're going to go through let's go through his career resume, Lincoln Riley. This guy who was born in Lubbock, Texas. So he's a Lubbock, Texas guy. He's a West Texas guy. And this is what's interesting about Lincoln Riley. So real quick, I'm going to pull up his win-loss record as a head coach. He has a younger brother named Garrett. He, as a player, was a quarterback at Texas Tech. And he was at Texas Tech from 2003 to 2009 under Mike Leach. So he learned the aerial raid offense. Then he went to East Carolina from 2010 to 2014. And there at East Carolina, he served under Ruffin McNeil. Okay, Ruffin McNeil's a really, really successful coach at ECU, one of the most respected coaches in all football. He learned about the running scheme. So he wasn't just a passing game guy. But you look at Lincoln Riley's career at Oklahoma, he took over for Bob Stoops, pretty much was planted as the heir apparent to Bob Stoops. So Bob Stoops groomed Lincoln Riley. So Lincoln Riley was always under the shadow of Bob Stoops, the guy who won the 2000 national championship with Jason White as his quarterback. So Bob Stoops is a guy at Oklahoma. If you remember, Sam Bradford won the Heisman Trophy, and Bob Stoops played for a national championship against, I believe, Tim Tebow and Florida in 2007, because Tebow didn't win the Heisman that year, but Sam Bradford did. But I'm getting, I guess, on a little bit of a tangent here. You're replacing a legend in Bob Stoops, who, along with Barry Switzer, is one of the best coaches in Oklahoma history. Lincoln Riley in the Big 12 Conference was absolutely impeccable. I believe that he won the Big 12 Conference championship. He won the conference championship unbelievably. It says he came second in the conference last year. I forget if, I forget who would have beaten him last year. I don't think they still won the Big 12 championship. But what ended up happening, for these years, he went 55-10 at Oklahoma. He never lost more than 2 games in one season. He made the college football playoff. Lincoln Riley did. Lincoln Riley made the playoffs. He made it with Jalen Hurts, right? They lost to LSU. He made it with Kyler Murray. They lost to Alabama. That Alabama team then went and got bounced by Clemson. And then with Baker Mayfield, he lost to Clemson. I believe that maybe lost to Clemson with Baker. I think Baker made it twice. Baker lost to Clemson in a really ugly game. And then Baker Mayfield lost to Georgia in overtime. So they've made the playoffs. The closest they've ever gotten to a national championship was when they were playing Jake Fromm, Sony Michel, and those guys. All right. So Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. Let's talk about why Lincoln Riley is absolutely awesome. All right. At Oklahoma. The demeanor of Lincoln Riley is steady. Okay. He's serious. He's razor edged, razor focused, doesn't joke around a whole lot. Now, some people can think that that is a real negative, but Lincoln Riley's cool and composed. Lincoln Riley, when he calls a game, he's aggressive, he's bold, and he's confident. The running backs that he sent to the NFL, he sent that guy Anderson to the NFL. I think that he sent different style running backs to the NFL. His tight end play, he had Mark Andrews, Calcaterra. He's had really good tight ends. He had D.D. Westbrook on the outside, C.D. Lamb. Unbelievable receivers like Marvin Mims is a really good receiver for Oklahoma. I am probably missing I'm definitely missing some other receivers. I mean, Sterling Shepard played under Lincoln Riley as well. I mentioned how good D.D. Westbrook was in college as a complete speedster. And C.D. Lamb, with Jalen Hurts was really, really good. And C.D. Lamb with Kyler Murray was really good. Kyler Murray won the Heisman. Baker won the Heisman. So the 2018 Oklahoma team, I mean, it was just stacked with football players, right? It was stacked. 2018. Let's go to their roster. I'm missing somebody on their damn roster. Marquise Hollywood Brown, Charleston Rambo. So I'm missing guys, but you can go back and look at it. Lincoln Riley can call flat out plays. He's brilliant in running scheme. He calls a balanced offense. He worked with Jalen Hurts, who's primarily a power runner. He worked with Kyler Murray, who's the complete opposite of a power runner, who's a complete spread, use the screen game, hit vertical deep throws, and get Kyler to the edge, not running it up the gut physically. With Jalen Hurts, when you have a physical running game, your defense gets better because you can get short yardage. You're not scoring as quickly, so your defensive metrics are going to be really good. And then Baker Mayfield, I mean, he was able to beat Ohio State, and that was one of the best games that I've ever seen a quarterback play was Baker Mayfield in Columbus. I would still argue that out of all of those quarterbacks, Baker had the best college career. Now, you could argue Jalen Hurts with Alabama, but Baker was the most consistent. I believe that he played 3 years at Oklahoma, 3 championships in the Big 12, and the last year was just spectacular. So I would say Baker Mayfield. Kyler had one really good year, but Baker was a better passer in college. He just was. In the NFL, injuries or whatnot, NFL's a different game and a different sort of situation with Cliff Kingsbury. So what ends up happening now with Oklahoma, I will discuss later in this video. But Lincoln Riley, what he's going to bring to Southern California is he's already recruited Southern California. I mean, Malachi Nelson's from there. Bryce Young's from there. JT Daniels is from there. Thibodeau is from the LA area. Drake London, I believe. Michael Pittman, who's playing in the NFL, is from LA. There are so many West Coast guys that are so talented, either as running backs or wide receivers. I mean, O.J. Simpson was from the state of California. Carson Palmer. I mean, you look back, of course, to the quarterbacks. You had Sanchez. You had a rich history of USC quarterbacks dating back to Palmer. Matt Leinart, of course, Reggie Bush from California, one of the greatest running backs in the history, of football is Reggie Bush. I will say that at USC. In the NFL, he had injuries. NFL journey is a totally different journey than college football. But Reggie Bush was spectacular to watch, and so was Matt Leinart. And that team was so consistent at USC. And I'm probably forgetting, some of their wide receivers. I'd have to go back, and I know like Dwayne Jarrett is a guy that I think was a tremendous wide receiver for Pete Carroll, Steve Sarkisian, Lane Kiffin was involved in that offense, Ed Orgeron. So USC, if you go back to the OJ years and then you go back to the Pete Carroll, that's a brand. The Trojans are a brand. All right. I know that their facilities might be down. I know that UCLA's in Brentwood, but USC is really the home for football. UCLA is basketball, USC is football. And you look at the leadership now that's at USC, it's never been stable. They had Pat Hayden, they had Lynn Swann. It's not a former player with no athletic director experience. And what Lincoln Riley cited was now you have a guy named Jim Cunningham, who's the same guy. He's the same guy who actually hired. He's the same guy who hired Luke Fickell at Cincinnati. So if you're going to look at the AD of USC, it actually might not be Cunningham. I got that wrong. The name Mike Bona, excuse me, is the athletic director for USC. So this move for the Trojans is a spectacular move because Lincoln recruits on the West Coast. He's also been to East Carolina, so he likes the ocean. Although I hear in California the ocean's so cold that you can't even go in the ocean. But you live in an unbelievable city. You live in LA. I mean, and it's not just the middle of LA where it's all touristy. There's Manhattan Beach, there's Malibu, it's Southern California. You can even go out by San Diego, whatever style of life that you want to live out in LA. I still believe that you have the ability to do that. I think that each neighborhood is totally different and you can find your vibe out in a city that big in LA. And it's not like a colder city, or it's not even like you're as inward as being in New York. It's more of a spread out city where you're not as trapped like on an island as New York. The talent that you can get, the weather, the high schools is tremendous. So already Lincoln Riley, there's so much going for him here. The other thing is he's replacing the most mediocre coach maybe in college football history. It doesn't mean he's the worst coach. He's just so bland. I mean, Clay Helton is so bland in everything he does. He's the nicest guy, right? We love him. He's a nice guy. All right. That's the thing about Clay Helton. That's why, again, this is a video. I would never say this if I met Clay Helton. This is a video. But in terms of his recruiting, in terms of the fire, the fist pumping on the sideline, the intimidation, it's not there. The offensive expertise, not there. Defensively, it's not there. And USC can have unbelievable defensive talent. I mean, I remember Leonard Williams was a top 10 pick out of USC. I know that USC can have cornerback play. I know that they can recruit safeties and even linebackers to play really good defensive line, really tough football, and that's what's going to have to happen even in LA. You look at the state of the Pac-12 right now, who are the best programs? You obviously have to compete with Oregon. Mario Cristobal, what was built from Chip Kelly, Phil Knight, NIL, all the money in Eugene, I would say that that's the top program in the Pac-12. Another program that I probably put number 2 is probably the Sun Devils of Arizona State, hailing from not Phoenix, but Tempe, Arizona. You're in the Scottsdale metropolitan area. Herm Edwards has done a really good job, but Herm Edwards is also having some recruiting violations. It's rocky there. The leadership, it's a murky situation. Antonio Pierce has been rumored to be, doing things with recruits that have been deemed inappropriate by the NCAA. And I love Antonio Pierce as a Giants fan, and I think he's a fantastic motivator, but that is out there right now. There's an investigation going into Herm Edwards, okay? Now let's look around the Pac-12 as well. You have UCLA, who's getting better, gaining steam. I think Chip Kelly's going to get it rolling, but Dorian Thompson's eventually going to graduate. Are you going to have as good of a running back as Cabernet, the running back from UCLA, and is your defense going to be as consistent? You look at Shaw at Stanford, he's going to be the next Gary Patterson. He looks like he's going to be fired. This is the worst season Stanford has had in like 20 years there. I mean, his time, he looks like it's looking like that needs a change from Stanford and David Shaw, who was the hot name a couple years ago. The Huskies are horrible. Had a terrible year with Jimmy Lake. Washington State is an absolute mess. They had to fire their coach over, government rules. And now They have to hire their interim coach who actually looks like a pretty good interim option. But still, if you're a coach, why would you want to go to a situation like Washington State that is absolutely so turbulent that you're already firing your coach? There's a divide in the locker room, whether they wanted the coach to stay or whether they agree with the administration and the state government. That is a really, really, just awful situation. A first-year coach in Nick Rolovich getting fired is awful for every single party involved with that situation. So looking at Washington State, and it's in Pullman. Then you have Oregon State and Jonathan Smith, who actually had a tremendous year. He would be a guy that I would look at for a big-time job. I mean, you even look at Oklahoma. This guy can recruit. He has B.J. Baylor, Chance Nolan at quarterback. That's a really damn good football coach. So you have Cristobal, and then you have Jonathan Smith, who's the most underrated coach that nobody talks about. You have a Pac-12 network that, again, needs this hire. So the Pac-12 in general, Wilcox is not good. Wilcox you can beat all day long. All right. Arizona's nothing. Utah's in the middle, Utah, unfortunately, middle of nowhere, really tough to recruit. I love the state of Utah. I'm a middle of nowhere guy. It's a really tough place to recruit. Colorado is never a fit for the Pac-12. There is no juice or excitement in that program at all. I can't even name you the head coach there. I mean, Mel Tucker was there and he's like, I got to get the heck out of Boulder. I mean, people there are more interested in the festivities off the field, such as you can fill in the blank for what Denver Coloradoans do. Okay. Maybe I'll catch some flack for that. But anyway. The Pac-12 is kind of a mess. The Pac-12 network sucks. You have to pay for it. Here I am complaining about. Here's the thing about the Pac-12 network. It's so hard to access. They're trying to succumb to the East Coast with their 9 a.m. kickoff times. Have it at 10:30. Let the diehards into the Pac-12. Give us Pac-12 after dark. That's what we want. We don't want to see you at noon. We don't want to see you playing games at noon with East Coast schools. We want to see you on the West Coast entertaining us late on a Saturday night when we're at the bar and we're coming home and we're going to watch the game. That's what we want. We want 1 o'clock football. Games should be later on in the evening at USC and in the Pac-12 and everywhere across the country, okay? Especially on the West Coast. So the Pac-12 network, Yogi Roth is a good broadcaster, but they need to start spending money to acquire really good broadcasters. I would have Brent Musburger call games. I would have Lou Holtz come back. You need some excitement in the Pac-12 for football, and that is what Lincoln Riley provides to USC. You have recruiting. You have a weak Pac-12. Who's going to challenge Lincoln in the Pac-12? It's probably going to be Oregon. Washington just hired a really good coach from Fresno State. I'm going to make another video on that. All right. But the point is, Lincoln's going to recruit his tail off. He's going to have tremendous quarterbacks and wide receivers and running backs. The offense will be great. It looks like Alex Grinch is coming with him. It looks like Grinch is there for the long haul. Might want to be a DC like Brent Venables. That's what you need if you're a Lincoln Riley. You need a right-hand man like Alex Grinch who plays aggressive defense. I love watching Grinch defenses play the game of football. I love it. Hard-hitting, aggressive, not thinking too much. Okay, Alex Grinch is a really, really good defensive coordinator, and he looks like he's square at USC. Also for Lincoln Riley, if he starts winning at USC, then he will be idolized again for bringing the brand back to USC. He's following, again, very mediocre Clay Helton. The other thing is for a lifestyle choice, okay, at Oklahoma, ask yourself this question at Oklahoma, all right? And we'll even throw LSU in the mix. If you're at Oklahoma, guys, one, you're in Norman, Oklahoma, which, again, I like small town. Anybody who knows me knows that I like small town America. I like small town country music, the whole nine. The thing is about Norman, though, guys, is that in Norman, you're the biggest show in town. When you're in Norman, Oklahoma, everything revolves around Boomer Sooner and the football program. You're Lincoln Riley. When Spencer Rattler steps on campus, when Caleb Williams steps on campus, they're compared to Kyler Murray, okay? They're compared to Baker Mayfield, 2 first overall picks. They're compared to Jalen Hurts, who's an NFL starting quarterback whose winning percentage is one of the best in college football history. Jalen Hurts might even be a top 35 college quarterback ever when you look at his accolades across his 3 or 4 years of starting quarterback. So the thing that I am going to say about Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma is the offense is really good. The defense has been there, guys. Guess what? He wins the Big 12, and the Big 12, by the way, filled with tremendous coaching from Kansas State and Chris Kleinman, all the way from Dave Aranda, all right, all the way from Mike Gundy's reinvented himself with Jim Knowles. It's hard enough to win the Big 12. Then you got to beat the defenses of Alabama. When you're in Alabama, guys, you get the best recruits on defense. All right. When you're in Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M, they don't go to the Big 12 for defense. When have you last seen elite, consistent defensive lines at Oklahoma? You don't see that. I mean, occasionally you'll get a good cornerback from Oklahoma. It doesn't really happen that often. You might get a linebacker like Kenneth Murray who will hit you. But the defense, it's like pulling teeth. It's very, very tough. All right. But your path to a playoff at Oklahoma. Here's the thing for Lincoln Riley. The only way Lincoln could ever surpass his expectation, and Bob Stoops, who won a national championship, again, he's playing in the shadow of Bob Stoops, is to win a damn playoff game against Alabama. It's to win a playoff game against Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, or Clemson. And all of those teams have better defensive coordinators, better resources to build defense. It is so damn hard for you to win a playoff game. All right? Let's compare the defensive abilities of Texas and Oklahoma. California is an easier state. You're the only real team in that state. You have UCLA. They'll battle you, but you can have a better defensive coordinator than UCLA. You can have more money into that. Cal is all the way in Berkeley, and they are terrible. You look at Stanford too. Okay, Stanford, you have to be tremendously intelligent. So the people that are going to Stanford, okay, you're going to get better defensive players than you are at Stanford. Okay, you're going to get better recruits than Stanford. All right. So look at this now. All right. Look at this now. What is harder, the SEC or the SEC or the Pac-12? It's a no-brainer. And the SEC, you're in the West. You got to play against your old protege, Mike Leach, probably the easiest matchup. You're going to play against Arkansas and Sam Pittman and Kendall Briles and Barry Odom, 3 monsters at Arkansas. You're going against Lane. Then guess what? You're going to go against LSU, and LSU's going to pay like Matt Campbell, Aranda, somebody else. You're going against Louisiana defense. The defenders in Louisiana are the best in the world. Best in the world. DBU for a reason. All right. Then you got Alabama. Then you got Texas A&M right there with Jimbo Fisher. I mean, the competition level, and you're in Oklahoma. You're not even in the state of Texas. All right. So Texas is going to get better at recruiting, and Texas A&M, you are the third fiddle in that area. You are at the borderline. You are an 8-4 style program. What, you're going to lose to Saban. You're going to lose to Jimbo. You're going to have 2 or 3 losses. Okay, even during really good years, you'll get to the back end of the playoff, and eventually people will get tired of your attitude around Oklahoma. They already are getting tired of your attitude, Lincoln Riley. And eventually the magic of your expectation is going to wear off. But now for your family, you go out to USC. You're in the Pac-12 now. The Pac-12 right now is very doable. No matter if the Pac-12 adds like Texas Tech or whatever, Pac-12 headquarters are in Las Vegas. USC is the crown jewel of football in the Pac-12, and that's why this move for Lincoln is tremendous. There's money in the Pac-12. At LSU, they just fired Coach O. That just sits wrong with me. If I were a head coach looking at options And you have LSU. You just saw Joe Burrow win the Heisman Trophy. You just saw Coach O hire Dave Aranda, and you just saw him hire Joe Brady from the Saints. And he brought in Jefferson and Chase and Thaddeus Moss and of course, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and put together one of the best offenses ever. I mean, Coach O was responsible for that. He helped build this year an elite level recruiting base, okay? And Scott Woodward still wasn't okay with Coach O. I mean, last year was a complete pandemic year. You lose Dave Aranda, who's unbelievable. You're not just going to replace Dave Aranda. You take a chance on a great friend in Bo Pelini, and Bo Pelini struggled, and they didn't stay with Bo Pelini. Now they get a really young, I believe, defensive coordinator that's at LSU. And I'm also not sure. So again, he tried a couple of defensive coordinator. I think Durante Jones, the defensive coordinator. I don't think he'll be retained. Okay. They tried to get a lot of guys like Marcus Freeman and whatever, but unfortunately you would have gotten Freeman if Woodward was stable. But Marcus Freeman, you know what happened? He pulled it at the last second because intelligently, Marcus Freeman, even Zach Arnett from Mississippi State that are really good DCs, Freeman would have been unbelievable at LSU. He could still be the head coach. I would still honestly look to make him a head coach because he's probably a top 3 recruiter in the country. He's at Cincinnati, Notre Dame. He's unbelievable. All right. He's totally deserving of a head coaching job and deserving of an $8 million salary is Marcus Freeman. But the thing is, the reason why Freeman didn't go to LSU is because you have Woodward, who's impatient, and because they knew Coach O was out. So why would Lincoln Riley want to go to LSU? The expectations, you're projected to win national championships. You're in the SEC. And again, like I said, do you really trust Woodward? Do you trust that administration? The money that you're getting paid is actually going to be held against you in terms of pressures. So the way that Lincoln handled this operation here with kind of verbally agreeing to LSU and then not being that transparent, it's hard to do breakups in any line of life. It's really hard to do breakups in pretty much anything. I don't know which way could have been appropriate to handle it. Maybe not saying anything in general. And it's a tough decision, but looking forward to how crazy the SEC is going to get. Something that's going to happen down the line, I would predict, as we go forward with the SEC, guys, is Arkansas and the University of Mississippi State. I think that they'd be wise to look at going into the Big 12. All right. And I know that the Big 12 added Cincy and BYU, but Arkansas came from the Big 12. Mississippi State never did. So I think Missouri looks like a total Big 12 team with basketball and football really on the decline, really for a long time since Pinkel was there. Matty Mock, shout out Matty Mock. And that running game with Franklin, I remember at quarterback. Larry Roundtree was good with Drew Lock, but they kept making it to the SEC championship when Gary was first there in the East, and that was pretty incredible. They played Auburn, Alabama, and so on and so forth. The thing that I'm going to say, though, is that the SEC is eventually some teams are going to drop. I could see Vanderbilt possibly joining the ACC. I told you about the Big 12. So the SEC is ever moving. And Oklahoma, by the way, they had opportunities to match LSU. They did not do it. You're always viewed in the same breath as your predecessor, Bob Stoops, when you're at Oklahoma. At LSU, you would have had better defense, but are you a Louisiana guy or are you more of a coastal guy? All right. And Lincoln is from West Texas. Doesn't mean he's Louisiana. Doesn't mean that he's a coastal guy either. But the thing is about Lincoln Riley is that the competition at USC is easier. The expectation, okay, is much easier. You're not following a national championship coach here at USC. The administration is better. It's lined up and it's better. The Pac-12 is actually something that you're going to be a huge part of. You're going to have a say. You're going to be powerful. What does Lincoln Riley really want? I think he's powerful. I think he wants power. In the SEC, you have Saban, you have Jimbo Fisher, okay? You have Kirby. You're going to have, let me even try to think, you're going to have Lane Kiffin. You're going to have a lot of different egos to go through. All right. I think Beamer's going to get up there and be a really good coach. I told you Pittman's going to be good. Mike Leach. And we'll see how Billy Napier is at the University of Florida. Your off weeks are going to be Kentucky. But in the Pac-12, you're going to be playing Colorado on an off week. You're going to be going up to Corvallis when Corvallis graduates all their seniors. You're going to go to Pullman and play. So again, it's going to be much easier sledding in the Pac-12. Let's talk about now the expectations for Lincoln Riley. First year, Jackson Dart, I think, is an elite level quarterback. I believe Jackson Dart is better than Caleb Williams, much better than Spencer Rattler. To me, Jackson Dart is the number one pick in the 2023 draft. Can make every throw off platform, incredibly accurate, really tough, competitive. I think he's a Utah kid. He is just phenomenal. Has the height, the mobility, elite level arm strength and accuracy. He's everything that you have in a franchise quarterback. You're immediately going to have Dart immediately. The wide receivers that you're going to be able to recruit there, you could go from Jackson Dart to Malachi Nelson, I believe his name is. And Malachi Nelson is tall and thin, like 6'4", mobile, accurate, really has everything. As much as I love Arch Manning, Malachi Nelson's a better is a better football player, I believe, at this stage in his career. I would mark him number one. So you can go from Jackson to Malachi right in the state of California. Malachi stays home. It's unbelievable. C.J. Stroud from California. Great quarterback play. Great 7-on-7s for Lincoln Riley in California. How is Lincoln going to fail at USC? I don't see it happening. I see him being a mega success, making the playoff a lot, competing for national championships. Within 5 years, I think he's going to win at least one national championship. I'll book that right now. 5 years, give me 5 years starting next year. He's going to win a national championship. It'll be a great move for Lincoln Riley. I believe 2 out of 5 are playoff years. Pac-12, I expect 3 out of 5 championships from Lincoln Riley. I'm saying this now, November 29th of 2021. I'm saying this right now. Why will Lincoln fail? Defensive problems with Alex Grinch. Okay. I think the recruiting, I expect him to recruit well. How is Lincoln going to lose in the coaching battle? Maybe Washington, maybe a lack of running the ball. Offensive line plays important when Lincoln Riley, his relationship at times, which can be serious, he's going to have to get along with some of the boosters at USC because sometimes it's a wine and cheese club. So that's maybe the worry of Lincoln Riley. It's high expectation. Is the defense going to be there? And can he assimilate a little bit with kind of a different style culture? Because when you're at USC, again, it's a button down kind of culture. You know, it's khakis, it's docksides kind of culture at USC. All right. It's fancy. You know, Oklahoma's a casual look, cargo shorts, you know, t-shirt. Oklahoma and West Texas, they're perfect fits. Norman and Lubbock are closer to each other. But guess what? As a lot of smart people have illustrated in this show, you fit in where you fit in. You win where you win. All right. PJ Fleck was born in Chicago. If he wins in Minnesota, he's a Minnesota guy. You look at Nick Saban's West Virginia. He was at LSU. You know, Dabo's from Alabama. He goes up to South Carolina, which is a different kind of culture. And he still wins at South Carolina in his spot, okay, at a preppy school like Clemson, all right? So, you know, if Brian Harsin would have beat Nick Saban, it doesn't matter that Brian Harsin is a Pacific guy who's from Idaho and Washington. It doesn't matter if you can still win. I think that this hire is unbelievable. It changes the trajectory of the sport of college football. It gives the Pac-12 something to be proud of. You now have Chip, Herm Edwards, Lincoln Riley, the Washington coach, Cristobal, who I forgot to mention at Oregon. This is huge for the Pac-12 that's been totally irrelevant. The Pac-12, I think, ever since Oregon, has never gotten a team in the playoff in 4 or 5 years. Okay, I'm wrong. That team with Jake Browning and Chris Peterson made the playoffs with like John Ross and Dante Pettis, and they played Jalen Hurts, and they got beat 24-7 at the Georgia Dome in the Peach Bowl in the semifinals. They were not even close. Not even close The only year the Pac-12 was relevant was when it was Scott Frost, when it was Marcus Mariota, and I believe it might have actually been Mark Helfrich the first year after Chip Kelly left. All right, the first year. So that's that. I love this hire. I think it's A+. I think it's incredible. I think Lincoln fits West Coast. He's going to recruit. It's going to be phenomenal. I know I'm not being unique with this opinion. I know that USC fans, I know that everybody loves Lincoln. All right. You might not love his smug personality. I happen to think he's cool. I think he's calm. I love how he calls a game. He's aggressive. He's thinking differently. All right. Lincoln just has that edge. He has that edge. There's a little sneaky, a little tinge of evil to Lincoln Riley that I really like. A little West Texas, a little hides things from you. All right. That's what I like. You know, I can like Shane Beamer. I can like different personalities. Lincoln is great for college football. He brings that edge back to USC. A+ hire. I gave you my expectations earlier. Let's go through the rundown. It would have been convenient to end it there. 5 years. Let's go next 5 years. Make it 7. In 7 years, over under 2 championships. I'm going to say 2 national championships in 7 years. That's pretty unbelievable. It'll probably be 1.5. One might be successful for 7 years, but I'll say 2. College football playoffs. Let's go 4 oh my God. In the Pac-12, 4 out of 7 should be 5. This first year will be key. 4 out of 7, making the playoff in the Pac-12. I'm making the college football playoff with 12 teams very easily. We'll probably win multiple games, finish in the top 4 out of 7 years. When are they going to finish in the top 4? 4 times out of 7. I love this hire, and Grinch needs to stay. That's the key. That's the one thing that can get away. If Alex goes somewhere and gets hired, all right, say Alex goes to Virginia Tech this year. Say Alex goes to Arizona or something crazy like that. You got to get a defensive coordinator if you're Lincoln. That's the one thing that can blow this thing up. If you hire the wrong DC like Don Brown at Michigan, look at how bad Harbaugh was with Don Brown against Ohio State. He hires Mike McDonald. Bam. They're freaking crazy good. All right. Defense and defensive recruiting. You got to be balanced. You can't just be all offense, Lincoln. All right. But again, you're playing in the Pac-12. It's a perfect move for Lincoln Riley. He spawned LSU kind of in those evil ways. Unbelievable. Midnight story, verbally agreed to LSU and used it as leverage to pony himself up to USC. Brilliant business decision. Guess what, guys? This is an awesome decision. A+ hire.